and welcome to Game Media Industries. In this lecture, I'm going to be drawing on the book chapter by Use Rayson's Computer Games as Participatory Media Culture, which you can find in the subject Moodle page. This lecture is going to focus on demonstrating how to build an analytical framework for game media analysis. And so I'm going to break it up into 3 sections to hopefully make it a bit easier to absorb and think about how it might apply to your own analysis. So in part 1, we're going to start with Rayson's ontological framework of video games. In part 2, we're going to look at Rayson's critical approach for thinking about games as participatory media culture. And in part 3, I want to draw on just a few examples of participatory media culture, specifically 2 forms of paratext, one known as modification and the other one known as machinima. So let's get started with part 1. I include Rayson's chapter because it's really useful for providing a number of analytical frameworks for thinking about the types of activities that go on and around games, as well as an analytical framework for thinking about what video games are. But I want to put some groundwork down so that we can start thinking more broadly about participatory media culture. We begin with the idea that play is more than what game designers and publishers imagine for their products. It is the idea that play is a much bigger concept than simply what happens inside a game. It is very common to think of play as being a passive activity. Indeed, play is often framed in opposition to work because it is regarded as being unproductive, which is completely untrue. The first part of the analytical framework for participatory media, suggested by Rayson's and media scholars like Henry Jenkins, is that play is productive. Indeed, many have argued that the time you enjoyed wasting was not wasted time. This is an adage that actually appears in the book Freinet Married by Marthe Trolley Curtin in 1912 and has been repeated by many, I think most notably by John Lennon. Similarly, I would argue that play is not wasted time at all, but it is entirely productive. Play is one of the building blocks of cultural and social life. Play has deeply important psychological, emotional, cognitive, and physical functions that are part of what it means to be human. This is the concept at the heart of the book by Dutch historian Johan Huizinga, who wrote a detailed study about the relationship between play and culture. Huizinga argued that culture and play are synonymous, that play is culture and that culture is actually play. His book, Homo Ludens, meaning the playful human, is a study of the play element in culture and was first published in 1949. One of the important things to take away from this lecture is that play is not passive. Play is active participation in culture. It is active and it is productive, although it is not always fun. The idea of participation is not new. All media requires some degree of participation from their audience in order to make meaning. But games go a step beyond that. Games are not games until they are played. Prior to play, games are simply software and code. One of the words you're going to find in the reading this week is the word ontology. This simply means the study of what exists, and Rayson's is engaging in the ontology of video games and the ontology of participation. Rayson's argues that participation is the specific characteristic and guiding principle of computer games as a form of digital media. Participation, according to Rayson's, involves multimediality, virtuality, interactivity, and connectivity. Together, these concepts form the first analytical framework that Rayson's is using to understand the participatory media culture of computer games. Not all video games demonstrate these elements in the same way or to the same degree, but Rayson's argues they are fundamentally a specific characteristic of computer games that supports participation. Let's have a look at these in detail. Multimediality. The first ontological characteristic of computer games, according to Rayson's, is multimediality. Multimediality is the combination of different forms of media: text, audio, images, animations, interfaces, and so on. Blog posts are another good example of multimedia. A blog can offer a good mix of texts, links, images, embedded podcasts, videos, and other elements. Multimediality is found across the internet. Games also have a high degree of multimediality. Even the most basic mobile game apps will include text, images, sound, music, interfaces, and so on. Cutscenes within a video game are a good example of multimediality, switching between traditional narrative and staged action and story, and then going back into play. The multimediality of games, however, is unlike film and television, perhaps more similar to the web and to apps, in that its ontology is based around the principles of software code that provide the means for the interactivity between the different media forms and formats. This characteristic has important economic and legal implications because of the ways that games can be modified after purchase, and we'll come back to that in part 3 of this lecture. Virtuality. The second ontological characteristic, the existence of video games, is their capacity for virtuality. Virtuality doesn't just mean 3D worlds like in VR. Virtuality is simply the experience of code as having a temporal and spatial dimension. Virtuality is the representational elements that enable humans to directly engage with algorithms in real time. All games, from Minesweeper and Tetris and Candy Crush to Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, Zelda, and Overwatch, all simulate a virtual, temporal, and spatial dimensionality to interact with. Pokemon Go is a great example of both multimediality and virtuality working together, employing a range of technologies and media functions, including maps, GPS, screens, movement sensors, input devices, 4G connections, and so on, to produce the experience of the augmented reality of the world via your phone. Rayson's third ontological characteristic of computer games is interactivity. This is the experience of the cybernetic relationship between the human and the game. The game tells the player what to do, and the player tells the avatar in the game world what to do. The game is interacting with the player by responding to their commands and providing challenges, and the player is interacting with their avatar in the game through the hardware controls. The high degree of interactivity is another distinguishing feature of video games that differentiates it from other forms of media. Remember that in building an analytical framework, you can start to consider one element in terms of the others. For example, interactivity connects the multimediality of a game via the virtuality of the hardware-software interface. Finally, we have in this ontological framework, connectivity. Interactivity is enabled by this ontological characteristic, and this occurs in multiple ways. Games connect multiple media elements together, sound, interface, and video, to produce multimediality, and they connect humans to the machine via the virtual dimensions of the game worlds and the physical input controls, creating the cybernetic connections of interactivity between humans and machines. Games also connect humans to other humans via internet technologies over a range of distances. So, at a broader sense, games also enable cultural connectivity, particularly through fandom. And fandom is a classic example of what we call participatory media culture. So that's it for part 1 of this lecture. We're going to pick up part 2 by starting to think about what we mean by the term culture.